most accounting firms don't want to touch them. I heard your conversation a month or so ago about, their C and D and F clients, right? They're everyone else's C, D, and F clients. And my goal was to provide, to make that my A client. And it's messy. It's messy. Trust me, it's not easy. And we still struggle through it. But that's the goal.
If you'd like to earn CPE credit for listening to this episode, visit earmarkcpe.com. Download the app, take a short quiz, and get your CPE certificate. Continuing education has never been so easy. And now, on to the episode. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Earmark Podcast. I'm Blake Oliver, joined today by Ben Sutton. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Blake. Good to be here.
And your firm is called Mazuma, is that right?
That's right. Yep.
And we're here today talking. Actually, this is the first time, is this the first time we've ever met?
Yes, it is.
It is. And you're a listener of the show. And you wrote me this wonderful message, an email. And I just want to read a little bit of that for our listeners so they get an idea of what we're talking about today. You recently spoke about whether it's possible to scale bookkeeping services at low prices. Well, I've been grinding away at it for over 10 years now and believe I'm onto something. We provide core monthly bookkeeping services, reconciliation/basic financials, and tax returns at year end, business and personal, all for a flat fee of $180 per month. My firm did $7 million gross revenue last year and can see a bright future ahead for continued exponential growth. I know you guys talk about niche a lot, and you mostly reference it in terms of industry, but there is a niche of businesses across all industries that don't need most of what is being offered by traditional accounting firms. They're what I call lifestyle businesses, which happens to be where the volume is. Anyway, love your show. Thanks again for solving my CPE woes. Keep it up, Ben. And I said, Ben, I would love to talk to you about those two things. First of all, your opinions on CPE, and then also how you scaled bookkeeping and tax for that price up to $7 million in gross revenue a year. That is really exciting. How long did it take you to get there?
Well, it's been over 10 years. Yeah, so
wow.
we truly, it has been a grind. And there's some real fundamental components, though, that I think has enabled us to get to this point. But it wasn't going to happen quickly, I think was the reality. So, yeah, it's been over 10 years. Yeah. We formed the company in 2011.
Okay, so that's around the same time I think that I got into the whole cloud accounting, cloud bookkeeping world. I'm thinking, I guess for me I started my firm in 2010. What was it that got you to start your own firm? Were you at a CPA firm? Do you have a background in audit, tax, accounting?
Yeah, so I went to school for accounting at BYU, Idaho, and got a bachelor's degree there. And then, of course, the 150-hour rule. BYU Idaho doesn't have a graduate program, so I had to look elsewhere and decided I wanted to try something a little bit different. So went to University of Washington. Had a really good experience there, although that 1 year at University of Washington cost me about 5 times as much as 4 years at my last college. So that's the student debt I'm still paying off from that 1 year. So I got my master's degree there in audit, got my CPA license soon after that as I went into an internship and got a job there at a regional firm in Seattle. Was there for just a short time before we kind of decided my wife couldn't handle the gloom of the Seattle weather anymore. And of course, a variety of other factors that led us to looking elsewhere. And I ended up getting a job in Utah for another regional firm and spent the next 4 years auditing and learning that world, and became an audit manager, and started over time, though, just realizing, people, as much as they like to make me feel like they like me, they don't like to see me coming, when I'm their auditor on site.
Yeah.
And I just had this realization, do I want to be doing this the rest of my life? And I think deep inside the answer was no. So I started to just kind of think about other opportunities. And small business had always captured my my attention. Like, we worked for medium-sized businesses doing audits, so they weren't the massive ones, where all you do is one account. But and so I did get some nice perspective as we were auditing, and kind of saw top to bottom. But the small business, just what made the small business, the micro business, the guy who drove by with Smith's Construction on the side of his truck, like, what is it that makes that business go? And what do they need from an accounting standpoint? They obviously don't need auditors. What do they need? And I'd spent years serving a board, which is kind of nobody. It's like there's no person. It's just a group that's representing a larger group. And I was like, I want to serve somebody. I want somebody to benefit from my efforts. So that kind of got me in this small business mind frame. And I actually came across a blog post about a firm called Mazuma in the UK, who were trying to do subscription-based accounting services for a very low monthly fee. And their monthly fee was extremely low. And I was like, how in the world are they doing that? And I don't see anybody doing that in the U.S. Why isn't anybody doing that in the U.S.? That's what these people need. So I reached out to them, and make a long story short, which is already being a long story, I can tell, but they loved the idea of me doing this in the U.S., but they weren't really able to help me, is what it came down to. So there was no like franchise arrangement or anything like that they could offer. So I just decided to find someone here in the U.S. who would partner up with me and go do this on my own here in the U.S.
So they let you use the name, or you just decided like it was okay? Got it.
Yep.
So what does Mazuma mean? Like, what's the?
It actually means cash or money in Yiddish.
Oh.
So it's kind of got a neat little relationship there.
So you were inspired by this company, and
Yes.
you decided to do the same thing. Well, let's get to the thing that I think is probably most interesting to our listeners, or the biggest question I have, and I'm sure they have, is, how do you do bookkeeping for those prices, and I assume make it profitable? I assume you're not doing this as a charitable endeavor.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
So you wanted to serve small businesses. You were doing audit, working for larger businesses, and you got to do it at a price point they can afford. So yeah, like $180 a month. Is that still the starting price point for you guys?
Yes, that's well, we actually have a lower plan that's $120 a month.
Ooh, wow.
That is quarterly bookkeeping and only provides one tax return. So just to clarify, the $180 plan is a monthly bookkeeping plan that includes a year-end personal and business tax return for the owner of the business. And then the $120 a month plan provides quarterly bookkeeping with just one tax return. So if we're doing an S corp, that needs its own tax return, that's the only return they get. They don't also get their personal. But if they are a single member LLC, we do their personal tax return. So early in my career, I noticed in the write-up department there was all this back and forth with the client, just all kinds of cleanup all the time. It was just cleaning up the books all the time so that the tax return could be prepared. And I said, why, these clients, small business clients, micro businesses, lifestyle businesses, they don't know accounting. So why in the world are we letting them touch anything in the books? And the answer was, well, because we don't want to do all the work. The accountant is like, well, it's easier, and they then do the work throughout the year, and we just get to kind of swoop in and fix things and then prepare the return. Well, I kind of rejected that a little bit and said, no, I think it would be easier if we just did all of the work associated with the data entry, the reconciliations, the financial statement preparation, and just let the client look at what we're doing and provide comments, and changes and notes and tell us what they want different. And so we started out with that premise that the client is not going to be modifying the data in the accounting software at all. So that any mistakes or any weird things going on, we know how they happen, why they happen, and we then can quickly fix them. So that's a fundamental line in the sand that we've drawn. So we don't let the clients change or modify data in their books. We also don't provide ARAP full accounting services that way. We are strictly providing a service of reconciliation, financial statement preparation, tax return preparation. So that's obviously makes the workload much less than it would be if we were tracking AR or inventory or AP. And so that's obviously fundamental.
So another way to say it is it's just pure write-up work, right? You're pulling in the transactions, you're categorizing them. Clients can have input, but very importantly, they don't have access to do it themselves, where then you have to go, well, we've all been in that experience where we've had clients do it, and then it's more work for us to untangle it after the fact.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's then the core offering is either on a quarterly or monthly basis. You do that write-up work. What do you send them each month or each quarter? Like, what does the client get as a deliverable, or do they get one?
So back in the day, we used to, we actually started out using the envelope method, where people would actually, the shoebox, shove the receipts, shove the bank statements and anything you want into this bag, the pre-addressed, pre-postage, and send it to us. And then we would print out their financial income statement, balance sheet, general ledger, and, punch it and package it all up and mail it back to them. Now we have a client portal that the clients log into to view their financial statements, and they can see the months that have been done and view their income statement, balance sheet, general ledger online. They also go online to upload bank statements to us if they haven't linked their bank account. So that's how they exchange documentation with us for taxes and so on.
Got it. Yeah. And your starter plan, the $120 per month, that's the business tax return, is included with quarterly bookkeeping. On the plus plan, $180 a month, it's monthly bookkeeping, and they get the business and the personal tax return. Now, let's talk about the tax work. Well, or let's just talk about how you manage the team doing this. Like, how do you make it profitable? Because my experience working at a larger firm, which you may have heard on a previous episode, I like to talk about this a lot, was I couldn't figure out how to fit into the firm's methodology anything less than $1,000 a month to do bookkeeping, even just to do accounting work, because we were using, staff in Los Angeles, high cost area. All of us had to compute billable rates, and it was, I think even just some of the entry level folks were billed at over $100 an hour. So for us to even, it wouldn't even be possible for us to work on a client for $200 a month, because we'd blow the budget if we worked more than 2 hours. So how are you doing this?
So I have, of course, had to abandon the time tracking concept and really leave behind what I had been taught in traditional accounting firms and change this from a focus on providing accounting services to really an operational exercise of how can I make this more efficient? And nothing was sacred, just like how can we move this data? Because that's really what you're doing. You're moving data from their bank into the accounting system, getting it classified, and the financial statements are there, right? I didn't believe that it takes an accounting degree to reconcile a bank account. So I wasn't hiring accounting degrees to start. Mm-hmm. And for the first 6 years, I think I was the only CPA, licensed person here. And so I taught high school graduates to reconcile a bank account properly and to do their best at understanding categorization and what a business is doing and how might this transaction be coded for them. That's not rocket science, right? And I think we don't spend enough time just doing that as part of the accounting education, because you got accounting degrees who come out of college and can't even do that properly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I got my accounting certificate at UCLA so I could sit for the CPA exam, and we never talked about how do you categorize transactions into a chart of accounts. I don't even think the chart of accounts ever even came up. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just it was a little bit nerve-wracking to do this because, in the accounting world, you're taught, CPA licenses are basically the only ones who could ever do this right.
Yeah.
But I had to believe, no, I think my little sister, can figure this out, who graduated high school, or my neighbor who's a mother at home looking for a job, can do this, can learn this. And so that was, a fundamental part of Mazuma is we take people and we teach them these basic accounting processes. They're not the ones preparing or reviewing tax returns, but
Sure.
they are the ones helping with that lower level work, that heavy lifting, when you talk about the amount of data that has to move in. So that's an important component. So efficiency, not hiring above pay grade to do work that doesn't require it.
So you're taking non-accountants, you're teaching them how to do bookkeeping. Do you have a standard chart of accounts that you use for every client? Do you have a niche that you specialize in? How do you keep it consistent, I suppose? Because it would be very difficult to take somebody who doesn't know accounting and then have them serve, 12 different clients from different industries, I imagine.
Yeah, so we do have a standard chart of accounts that we start with, but we allow the client to make modifications to that. So if they've got cost of goods sold, we'll make sure that that's there and showing up the way they want it to. They want to see it. And so we have teams, right? So we have a tax professional who's sometimes a CPA license, sometimes not, paired up with an experienced bookkeeper, and together they kind of act as the mom and dad of the team, kind of the parents of the team, and then we've got a few bookkeepers working underneath them. And so there's supervision. There still is review and supervision going on, and a place for these new employees who are learning accounting to ask questions and be trained. We definitely have training that we provide in a formal way, more formal now than it used to be. But as far as niching, this is a question that we've asked ourselves many times, and that people have posed to us many times as a suggestion. And, it's partly been driven by where we've gone, has partly been driven by the lead sources that we can find. But we don't niche into a specific industry. We do have groups of clients from similar industries, and we are trying to group them under the same team. But we service all small businesses, any kind, that aren't in illicit industries and things like illegal or illicit industries. And so, no, our niche is the micro business. It's the people who can tolerate this level of service, and really this is all they want. It's the people who would be doing it themselves if we weren't offering this level of service. So their requirements just aren't as heavy, and significant as someone with a more sophisticated business.
Well, there's millions of them, and they're looking to get their taxes taken care of. That's the primary goal. And so they got to do the bookkeeping to get the taxes done. And you're providing, it's not that complicated. That's what I love about this business model, is that it's solving a problem that most CPA firms don't touch, because they might do the tax return, but they won't do the books. You're offering the books and the tax return together as a package, as a monthly fee. And it's priced right for that type of business, I imagine. Like what's the annual revenue of a typical client of Mazuma?
It gets down as low as 50,000 up to millions. But I'd say the bulk of our clients are between 100,000 and 500,000 in annual revenue. And they're the type of businesses that can make a living. They can pay the bills. They're not trying to go raise capital. They're not trying to expand in large ways. They are a realtor who wants to provide a good lifestyle for them and their family. They're an insurance agent. They're, landscaper. That's where most small businesses are. And you're right. Most accounting firms don't want to touch them. I heard your conversation a month or so ago about, their C and D and F clients, right? They're everyone else's C, D, and F clients. And my
Right.
goal was to provide, to make that my A client. And it's messy. It's messy. Trust me, it's not easy, and we still struggle through it. But that's the goal.
And are you doing this with all staff in Salt Lake City? Because you're in the greater Salt Lake area. Or do you use remote staff in the U.S.? Do you use offshore?
So all of the above. So we do have a large amount of a large portion of our employees come into the office every day, and then there's a portion. So about half of our U.S. Domestic employees are coming to the office. Then we've got about half that are remote, and that was a more recent. We just started hiring remote accountants and bookkeepers in the past 2 years. We had a phase where we needed to ramp up significantly, and we couldn't hire fast enough here and locally, and so we opened up that door, and it's been working out pretty well, coming with its own unique challenges. But we also do outsource some work to the Philippines. And so it was really neat to hear your recent podcast with that gentleman who built his firm, it seems like, on the Philippines.
Yeah. That was Argel Sibillo. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really neat to hear and relate to his experience. It's a different approach for us. We don't use them as client-facing, even though, we've contemplated it, and who knows down the road. But right now they are more data entry. They do answer phones and kind of act as our first defense. So if a client's calling in and needs to change their password or can't log into the client portal, it's not taking the time of an accountant to deal with issues like that. So they do help with phones. We also use them for software development, and they are amazing people. I'm so grateful. We are so blessed by their contribution to our business. It's been a really neat experience working with the Philippines.
So we do that at Earmark as well. Like all of our CPE courses are managed and developed in the Philippines by a team there.
Really?
Yeah, we couldn't do it otherwise. So our CPE manager is a CPA and a CMA, and he was previously working a corporate role from the Philippines and wasn't really, it wasn't exciting him because a lot of times the work that gets sent over there by Fortune 500 companies, I imagine, is pretty tedious for somebody who's talented and smart. Mm-hmm. And so he found us and said, "Hey, can I help with Earmark? I think it's a great idea." And so that's where we do all of our development, and we can do it for a fraction of the cost. The business model wouldn't even be possible, right, without that.
Wow.
And development is done in Pakistan for the app.
Okay.
And I feel like with the labor shortage getting worse every year in accounting, I don't see how firms are going to be able to stay in business if they don't offshore. I think every firm at some point will have at least some aspect of work being offshore.
Yeah, absolutely. The firm I used to work for just recently did it for the first time, and that's a surprise to me. That's a real big. But yeah, the fact that they're doing it. Traditional firms are now, the big firms we all know have been doing this for probably decades. But smaller firms, medium-sized firms who haven't considered it are definitely considering it now.
Well, in the episode that you mentioned, the interview with Argel Sibillo, the inspiration for his firm came from him working at Deloitte. And Deloitte, like you said, has been offshoring to India for decades now. And so he was very familiar with that and felt like he could build a firm and improve that process. And so I think, a lot of the younger generation, especially those coming out of Big Four who are going into smaller firms or starting their own, that's the way they've always done it. So that's the way they're going to build firms now.
Absolutely.
It does have its own challenges, as you mentioned, right? The time differences. You really have to be clear with directions, and documentation is so important, which is something that's often missing in firms because we can just walk over to somebody's desk and ask a question. But when you've got this 12 to 24 hour delay, you got to be really clear with what you want. And so I have learned over the years to be precise.
Yes. Yeah.
And using a video, I use Loom. Loom is a great tool to help clarify and to create like that human connection that you don't get over chat or email.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the tax work, do you do the tax work here in the U.S.?
Yes, we do have
Yeah.
some preparation happening in the Philippines, but
Okay.
all the review and finalizing and communicating, delivering to the client is done here in the U.S. Yeah.
Let's talk about the technology stack. I imagine you've standardized, right? That's one of the first things you got to do if you're going to offer this kind of streamlined service. So do you mind walking me through a typical client's technology stack from, starting with the bank and then going through to the tax return at the end?
Sure. So we're actually the bank is, we can have thousands of different banks, and we use a service, a company called MX. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but they're like a Yodlee or a
No.
Plaid, which
Okay.
is an aggregator. They facilitate bank connections to our software that we're actually kind of proud to announce. Just this year, we finished development of our own GL software,
Wow.
and so that data feeds into our own accounting software, and then that's where all the accounting is done, bookkeeping. We use Zoho as our main, I guess, ERP type system, CRM, and a variety of their other apps to manage workflow, and to manage people, and to automate as much as we can. You've talked about Zoho on here before. It's a very, very robust platform. And for someone who's a little bit technology minded, you can really dig in there and do some really neat stuff with automation,
Mm-hmm.
custom coding, and that's a little bit part of my background too. I minored in IT, information systems, and so that's always been fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, I know I asked you to walk me through it, but now I got to stop you because you said two things that are really interesting, which is you have your own proprietary GL. I want to learn more about that. That's really interesting. Not a lot of firms building their own. And then also Zoho, they were a sponsor of the Cloud Accounting podcast, and I've known about them for years, but I haven't met a ton of US-based firms that are platformed on Zoho. So I don't
Yeah.
know, where do you want to start? I'd love to hear more about what you think about like Zoho or the GL.
Yeah, so on the GL side, we've actually never used QuickBooks because of its inefficiencies for us. From early on, I could not get myself to with my early focus on efficiency, it just never fit. It just never met the speed of data and the transparency of data that I felt like I needed to be quick at this and to make it a seamless process to get the data in and out. And, because I'm talking about high volume here, right? Like when you have to click 5 extra times to get an income statement into a deliverable format, or back in the day when they didn't have mass, I don't know how long they have had this tool, but you couldn't move a batch of transactions from one account to another,
Right.
and you get to the end of the year and there's 500 transactions in the wrong place. To fix that shouldn't take more than a minute, right? But in QuickBooks, it was just too long. I know they've got tools and things now, but that kind of set me off on this other course of not being able to use that. Ultimately, what we need is our operational data to integrate with our accounting data to give the client the experiences that we want, which is more than a income statement and balance sheet, because we know they don't get much value out of those things. It's all about the tax return for them. We want to give them more insight, more understanding in their finances, and as long as we are handcuffed by a third-party accounting software, we're never going to be able to do it. So that's about 2 years ago is when we decided we're going to start developing our own, that we've got full access to, so that we can use the revenue and net income data to congratulate the clients, to warn the clients, to give them a heads up about tax implications, because their profit this year is bigger than, and do that in an automated, efficient way was going to require us to have our own GL. Now, we also aren't catering to business owners who are using us for ARAP, inventory, moving money, yet we're not. So we felt like, okay, we don't have all of these extra features that we know are very valuable in other platforms like QuickBooks, obviously, and the others. But for now, we're going to focus on just being as efficient as possible and providing a new experience with the client, between the client and their money, and try and get out of this paradigm of the tax return being the only thing they care about, and giving them insights into their business that an income statement and balance sheet won't provide. So that's the background between our own GL.
And how did you develop it? You said you have a background in code, or?
Yeah, so it was a little bit, so I had started working with developers to build our client portal, to build our website where clients could log in and stuff. So I hired a company, to build that for us. And I was the only one in the company who was really leaned technology side of things. And I could do coding. Like back in the day, I would write macros. It all started with Excel macros and writing in VBA and trying to make my jobs faster and easier when I was an intern somewhere. But so I had an understanding of code and what could be done. And then working with these companies who were building our website, our client portal, I gained a little bit of confidence. Like, okay, I can maybe manage a project like this. And then for the next version of our client portal, I went directly to a developer in the Philippines. Just hired a guy who was looking for a job, not through a management company or anything, just an individual. And together, he and I and one other developer got client portal, a new client portal developed. So that, again, confidence is just kind of growing, experience is growing. And I said, hey, let's do this accounting system thing. And I understood debits and credits enough. I just thought we can figure this out. And so it took a lot longer than we thought it would, 2 years instead of 1. But we finally launched it this summer, at the end of this summer.
Well, congratulations. So
Thanks.
How many clients do you have on it? Have you moved them all over? Are you gradually shifting them?
They're all moved over now.
All right.
Yeah, so all 6,000 clients are there.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. Do you have any plans to license this out to other firms, or is this going to stay proprietary to Mazuma?
It's no plans. It's so integrated into our workflow and into the way that we think about accounting and bookkeeping that it's a little bit hard for me to imagine trying to sell somebody else on it, because it's like you'd have to bring the whole Zoho thing with it in order to really have it, have its power. So
tell me about that. Is that because you've integrated with Zoho deeply?
Yes. Yeah. So again, our accounting software is pulling information out of Zoho for our bookkeepers to utilize as they are diving into a set of books to reconcile. And
what would be an example of that?
So first of all, they open up the CRM, Zoho CRM, and there's a one button link to open up that client's books, right? So I open up Jones Construction, and I've got tabs that show me all the bookkeeping tasks that need to be done for Jones Construction, and I click a hyperlink that automatically pops open their bookkeeping software, right? And so then in the bookkeeping software, I'm seeing information that's being pulled from Zoho, such as what type of business they are, with their name and email address, their contact information, if I need to send them a note or call them at that point. And then we are also sending back and forth information about whether or not this client's bank account is linked. Because as you know, bank account links don't always last. They break for various reasons. And so if that breaks, we want to be able to see it in the CRM side or on the accounting side. And so that integration has been necessary. and we're really just at kind of the beginning stages of that integration. But our goal is to also, display on the client portal graphs and features and things that tell the client where they're at, and that all kind of integrates with the CRM. It's a triangle, right? We've got our front end website, we got our CRM, and then we've got our accounting data, and they all kind of work together to hopefully provide an experience for the clients that we're excited about.
How'd you decide on Zoho versus Microsoft or Google?
I went through both of those. We started out with Google, and it was good. And then I met my cousin, who was kind of helping us with our IT networking and stuff, pushed me onto the Microsoft environment, and that was good too. But we've been on Zoho, I think, about 3 years now, and so maybe it was just like the Google and the Microsoft weren't as evolved as as I needed them to be, or as I was hoping they would be. And then by the time I was looking elsewhere, Zoho was evolved enough, and Zoho just had more tools at the time. Google's, I think, probably catching up, but Zoho just has so many tools to use in your business: surveys, mass emailing, e-signature. It's got internal communication tools. It's got email. It's got the CRM. It's got marketing platform. It's got intranet for internal websites. It's got you can go on. There's about 40, the relevant tools out there in Zoho. And the idea of being able to integrate all of those things together, even though it doesn't work as well as you wish it would, and as you think it would, since they're all Zoho, why can't these things just play nice? But I think that is what really appealed to me, just the integration across.
Yeah, it's. I mean, when I look at it, I haven't used it myself, but when I look at it, it really feels like an ERP for small businesses, in the sense of it can do so many different things. And like you said, the CRM, that is still unique to Zoho. Google doesn't come with one. Microsoft, you got to buy Dynamics if you want to integrate it, and it's not as smooth. So that's really interesting. And then you've integrated the CRM with your own software, so you can pull in data, send it back and forth. That's really interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so I took you off track there with the GL and Zoho. Let's keep going. I'd love to get through a full accounting, accounting cycle.
So really, as far as the tech stack, I think, and then you'd add our client portal, just our own website onto that facilitates information exchange and communication with the clients. We're not yet at the app stage. The next kind of leg of our race is we want the clients to be able to get the service through an app. That's obviously really important.
Mobile app?
Yeah, through a mobile app. We feel like that's really important, as we feel way behind, not really compared to other accountants, but compared to what our clients are engaging with in other aspects of their lives. It's all mobile based, and we need to simplify and consolidate and focus our service down good enough to deliver it through a phone.
What do you do for the tax? What's your tax software?
We use UltraTax, and we've used that almost since the beginning. I was on Intuit Online, their professional, the Intuit professional tax software that was kind of new at the time. It was probably 8 or 10 years ago that I was on it. And that was good, but again, they were building around the QuickBooks environment, and that wasn't where I was headed. So we ended up looking for other options and needed something nationwide, that serviced the whole country and had the state and the city, the little, unique forms that anyone could need anywhere in the U.S. And UltraTax was kind of the most robust, but most affordable solution we found. And frankly, I think it's been really frustrating at how separate that piece has had to remain from the rest of our technology. There's no APIs.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to ask you, is how do you get the data from your bookkeeping system you've built into the tax software and make adjustments. Now, do you do book to tax in your own software? Do you do that in spreadsheets? Or maybe that's not even necessary because of the way you've set things up.
It's cash. So we do cash-based bookkeeping. It's essentially
Yeah.
tax-based bookkeeping, right? Is kind of what
Right.
we're mostly doing. And so it's a manual process to get it from our accounting software into UltraTax, which is a major weakness, of ours, and a breakdown in efficiency. But that's kind of the poison we chose. And
Well,
yeah,
I mean, that's kind of the everybody's in that boat really right now. Unless, like you said, you're using QuickBooks and you're using Intuit's Intuit Tax Online, and you can just pull the data in. Pretty much everybody's doing that. You're just keying it in.
yeah. And it's not as simple as you like. There's still a lot of, with integrations that I've experienced in the past and pulling data directly in to the tax
Yeah.
software, there's always some kind of conversion or some kind of mapping or some kind of other element that has to be maintained. And
Yeah.
that takes work too. And so we just decided we're just going to key it in.
Well, and I imagine you're not using a ton of accounts in your chart of accounts. You've streamlined
Right.
that. So, right, how long does it really take? It's one of those things we have to stop and think about and say, well, I could automate this, but is it worth the time it takes to automate it? Unless I can make it perfect, where all the data just flows seamlessly, then maybe it is easier just for the tax team to key in the numbers. And
Mm-hmm.
that provides some level of, double checking as well, right? When I'm looking at these
Right.
numbers and keying them in, I might see, oh, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't look right.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. That's a really important point. I think if you don't know what's going on every step of the way, then you're kind of walking on thin ice.
yeah. So your clients, they do their AR, their AP on their own. They pay their own bills. They invoice. I imagine, do they run payroll? They must, if they've got an S corp, they got to run their own payroll.
Yep.
Do you get so you don't get involved in that, or do you? And do you recommend software to them?
We used to offer payroll. Interestingly, we were using QuickBooks to run payroll for our clients at the very beginning. And then we moved to other softwares and realized over time, as we started to grow a little bit, it was becoming more of a liability. We were very focused on being the affordable option on the bookkeeping side, and we kind of carried that same philosophy over into payroll and realized we're not making any money doing this. In fact, we're causing ourselves a lot of headaches because we're not doing it as well as we need to be. So let's just be done. So we stopped our payroll service. We actually sold our payroll business to ADP about 4 years ago, and since then have just tried to laser focus on this bookkeeping tax cycle, iteration after iteration after iteration of processes and procedures to try and stabilize it, to ensure it's scalable with the quality that we want and that's acceptable to the client. So that's really been our focus. So really we just take an advisory role on the payroll side. We answer, our tax pros are available to answer questions about anything. And so they often, the clients can ask the tax pro, what should my withholdings be? How do, and we can help them, guide them through notices they receive or things like that. But it's really on them and their payroll provider at this point.
Yeah, makes sense. Why get in the middle of that when, if you got that relationship with a payroll service, they can take care of it, right? And that's their job.
Yeah.
And they've automated that, and they've made that their expertise.
Right. And so, yeah, we just refer them.
Yeah. Anything else that I haven't asked about when it comes to technology that you'd like to share?
I think just nothing that I really haven't mentioned, except for the fact that it's not. I think it's within our role as accountants to be thinking about the best solutions, and don't always. You may not always find it off the shelf, and don't be afraid to learn something and develop something that could really benefit your clients and your business in general. I think there are lots of third-party softwares that are great and amazing and do amazing things, but there's a lot of stuff that you get with them that you don't need, or and the cost of them obviously is a major prohibitor. I could not charge my clients an extra, with our prices.
Right.
If I was charging an extra $50 or $75 or $100, I don't know what Intuit Online, the online bookkeeping costs anymore, but it would be impossible to be at this price point. And I think that's a real important thing to factor in. But it all depends on the market you're going after, right? We are chosen to go after people who, like I said, would probably rather do this themselves, try and work through this on their own in their own set of books, instead of paying $500 or whatever it would cost to have somebody else do it. And so anyway, I think that innovation on the software side, we can do a lot of that as accountants because we know what the issues are. And instead of a software developer, some venture-backed software company that's out of touch with what we do, producing those.
Yeah. My takeaway from this is that you have tailored your technology to the experience that you can deliver at the price point your clients are willing to pay. And you've stripped out all of the unnecessary cost and complexity by building your own GL that is designed just to get those books done so that you can get their tax return done and offer them those insights that you want to offer them through, I assume you're going to email those out to clients every month or every quarter, right? And they don't have to look at a P&L or a balance sheet anymore to get what they need to know.
Right.
And that's the value, right? It's I've got my compliance headache taken care of, my taxes, I don't have to worry about it. My books are done, and I'm even going to get a little bit of light automated advisory out of it, which is more than they'll get from any freelance bookkeeper, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, and 6,000 clients, that's a big number. Did you imagine when you started, how long's it been? 12
years?
12 years?
Almost. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our goal was to take over take over QuickBooks.
Well, you're giving QuickBooks Live a run for its money, I imagine.
Yeah, that's the hope, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I doubt they even know we exist, but yeah, we scalability and affordability have been kind of our mantra. We've opened our eyes a little bit over the past few years to making sure quality remains as we scale, and we've had to raise our prices. We used to be at lower prices, but we've raised our prices to try and maintain that quality and make sure that our client to employee ratio doesn't get crazy, and that our people are not working more here than they would be at another accounting firm. We need them to be working less here than they would be at another accounting firm. That's really, really important to us.
What is that ratio? How many clients does a bookkeeper have, for instance, on average?
So I probably would keep that a little bit closer to the chest. It's over 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I imagine it's doable with the systems you have. I think in my firm, an all-star could have done 100, but most of our bookkeepers were 30 or 40 clients. But we didn't have the tech stack that you have, right? We were using off the shelf, and every client was a little different, so that you just don't get as many efficiencies.
Right. Oh. Yeah. Yep. So our goal is to make that ratio as high as we can without losing the quality of the work.
Well, how do you manage that with 6,000 clients? How do you know who's getting the quality that they expect?
So we listen to our clients, we survey clients, and our operations team is very in touch with the work that we do. Our operations director, who works just under me, she came on as a bookkeeper 5 years ago, and has seen the evolution, has interacted with clients, and that awareness of our leadership having come from the bookkeeping the bookkeeping service has been really important to maintaining quality, I think, and concern. When you know what it's like for a client to complain to you and how bad it feels when a client's upset, you care a little bit more about making sure that doesn't happen and making sure that our bookkeepers are not dealing with that every day, right? That those are rare, more as rare as possible. So we just listen and try and accommodate and change in order to prevent them from having their bad experiences. I mean, they know what they're paying. We know what they're paying. They're not going to get the same service as they would from a Main Street accountant who's charging them $200 an hour. That's just not the reality.
Right. But you've set that expectation, which is, that's fine, right? It's deliver what the client expects and set that expectation up front.
Exactly. That's really important. Yep. This is a subscription. We don't lock people into contracts, so it's month to month. And that's been important. We put it on us to do a good enough job that these people will stay. And we feel like that's been a really important motivation.
One more thing before we go, getting to 6,000 clients can be a challenge just in terms of acquiring them. How do you continue to grow? Is it word of mouth? Is it online advertising, marketing? How do you get the name Mazuma out there?
So we do advertise online. We do SEO. We've done iterations of radio and networking and things like that. A lot of our real growth though has come through partnerships. Other companies that businesses, small businesses, our type of client is being aggregated in, and we've set up a revenue share deal that we pay for leads that come over. Well, it's revenue share, so we pay when we get paid. So forming partnerships has really been the key to getting a consistent high volume of leads. Interesting.
So partnerships with what kind of companies?
So companies that are, like entity formation companies, companies that where a lot of 1099 contractors are consolidated. You've got, real estate associations. You've got trucking carriers, who have thousands of truckers out there on the road that are all their own S corp or single member LLC. So just any larger organization that is servicing these 1099 people gives us an opportunity to help those people, and get leads that way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't heard that from a lot of firm owners. I mean, I know that smaller firms will get referrals from attorneys and insurance agents and that sort of thing. But what you've done is taken that to another level, where you've got an association referring you clients or a larger business doing that. So that's fascinating.
And the main thing the prerequisite to that is scalability. Like they're not willing to send over hundreds of clients if you're not confident you can service them.
Right.
So I think that our platform, our foundation that we've built was all about scalability. And so that opens us up to those opportunities.
Well, Ben, this has been so educational for me, and I'm sure our listeners learned a lot as well.
We haven't talked about the CPE yet.
Oh, I know. We didn't get to that. So let's do that. Let's do that. This is the bonus portion of the episode.
Okay.
Let's talk about your opinions on CPE. What do you think?
So you really solve like every year, well, every 2 years, right? Because that's when in Utah, we have to have 80 hours every 2 years. And so every year, the only way that I could like really be sure that I was going to get enough CPE was if I left home, left work, went and stayed in a hotel somewhere and sat through 8 hours a day of speakers who have been doing this, that is their job, and who've been doing this for generations, it feels like. And I remember I actually was trying to find this picture to send to you. I couldn't find it on my phone, but I remember sitting in the back of one of these huge conference rooms in the Mirage at Las Vegas, took a picture in the front, and all it was I don't want to be rude here, but aged very, I was of a different generation. Like all the attendees were white hair, bald. It looked like they were on their way out of the industry, like they're getting ready to retire. And I'm the only one here for some reason. I'm wondering, how does everyone else get their CPE? But I'm the only one here that seems to have brown hair still. And it was just so clear that this doesn't feel like it's for me. But it was the only way that I could fit it in and make sure it got done. So this particular 2-year period of 2022, I happen to be way behind. Like starting midway through this year, I had only done like 4 hours. So I had 76 hours left to do between June and the end of the year. And then I don't know how I came across Earmark, but somehow, some way I found you, and I've gotten like 68 hours done since that time, just being able to listen to it on my way to work. I listened to it on my way in. I sit there in the car until the episode finishes, and then I take the test, and boom, I got another hour done. And it's really not just only about the convenience. It's about the topics and the subject matter, so much more relevant than hearing the same, conversation about this form and the nuances with partnerships and basis and all this stuff that are important. Yeah, but I can research that when I need to. Like those are top technical topics. I have resources, right, to go guide me through those. You're never going to sit me down for 40 hours and teach me everything I'm going to run into during tax season. So let me just figure that out when I need it. And you'd get my CPE, like seeing the lay of the land, understanding the industry, understanding the market, understanding my client more, and how to better service them and challenge my paradigm of what I've been doing for 10 years. Wow, this other thing's going on. Maybe I should consider doing that. So it's just been so much more valuable to me that way.
Well, thank you so much. And now you've participated in creating an excellent hour of CPE that I hope our listeners will really enjoy and get a lot out of. I know they will. And so if our listeners want to connect with you, Ben, and learn more about what you're doing, just, are you online? Do you do social media? Where do you like to connect?
The company is online, Mazuma USA. I think is our handle, our Facebook and LinkedIn. I think we do Instagram too, and that's our website as well. So I don't do direct client service much anymore, but you can definitely weasel your way through the channels and get to me if you want to.
All right. Are you hiring?
At the moment, no. We actually had to downsize quite a bit this year because of some increased hiring that we did earlier in the year in anticipation of some new partnerships. They didn't end up landing when we thought they would, so they're delayed, and so we actually had to decrease our staff for temporarily until those come online. But as soon as they do, we're going to be back out there in full force, hiring as much as we can.
Well, I'm looking forward to following your journey and the growth, and it sounds like there's amazing things coming in the future. Ben, thanks for your time, and I hope to get to see you in person sometime soon.
That'd be great, Blake. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you learned something new. And if you did, wouldn't it be nice to get some CPE credit for it? Well, I've got great news. My new app, Earmark CPE, offers free NASBA-approved CPE credits for listening to podcasts, including this one. Visit earmarkcpe.com to download the app, take a short quiz, and get your CPE certificate. That's earmarkcpe.com.